All right, we are up.
Okay.
This is the Our Town Podcast coming to you from Studio West in Limestone County, Madison City, right off County Line Road.
Yep.
And your office, Lauren Marsh, who's the president of Ridgeline Construction,
Yep.
is not too far from here.
It's not too far.
I often forget how close Athens is
Yeah.
to where we are, technically Madison, but then like the city of Huntsville, I guess, circumscribes all of that.
Yes.
And a lot of businesses are always trying to get annexed into
Yep.
one city or the other. And so I looked at a map of Ridgeline because it says Athens. And in my mind, I was thinking I was just out at Athens State, which is kind of west of the interstate. And then like, oh no, Athens is really not too far from where we are right now.
Right. It isn't. It's
And
just a little skip.
And you were born and raised in Madison.
I was.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Are you Bob Jones High School?
Bob Jones? Yep. Sorry.
That's
I saw
fine.
James Clemens sign in your yard.
No, that's fine.
But there was no James Clemens. I'm before the James Clemens era, so it was Bob Jones. That was it.
I think my opinion on and this, if you listen to some of the earlier episodes, I do talk about the whole concept of our town is it's a literal thing and it's a figurative thing. And on the literal side, we're all very proud of where we're from.
Right.
And a lot of that pride literally stems from the high school you went to and where that boundary is.
Yeah.
Elementary school, middle school, you can't even remember your mascot if there was one. But high school, and it bleeds over into everything in a community where it's a real divisor. And it's just, this side of the street versus that side of the street, this town versus that town. So personally, I only get agitated or defensive if it's like an attack on like my alumni, which was like in Virginia.
Yeah.
For my kids, to where they went to school, it's not really my experience.
Yeah.
I didn't have any control personally over, the good, the bad, or the ugly of that experience.
True.
So like to me, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's a sign of progress. Cool.
That is true.
James Clemens is here. Great. There's going to be some other schools built. I guess there's been other schools that have popped up since you were growing up.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, this area was nothing but cotton fields. So I mean, it's been exponential growth since what I remember as a youngster. So
where was the house you grew up in?
So I grew up off of Mill Road, like Sullivan Street, Mill Road.
Yeah.
That area, like almost downtown Madison. So like we could walk to downtown. We'd walk over to the playground at Madison Elementary School. So yeah, that's where I mainly grew up, and went to Bob Jones, and did not know that I'd stay here. We ended up moving next town over. And the funny thing about Athens is when we first moved out there, which would be about, now that was 12 years ago or so. No, more than that. More like 14 years ago. It was kind of what Madison was like when I was growing up, and now even Athens is booming. So it's the exponential growth that we have all experienced in this area is really crazy to think about.
Yeah.
When you step back in time.
Well, and in your line of business, construction, roofing, siding, and we're going to get into all of that today.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to do so because there's certainly from a business perspective, I'm sure something that you and Terry, is your husband, and he's the original owner or founder of Ridgeline, correct?
Yep.
And now you've expanded. Just as a primer for our viewers, they have an office here in Huntsville. They have one down in Spanish Fort near Mobile. They have one in Pensacola and in one in Tampa.
Yep.
And we're going to touch through all of that. And you've only been around 12 years, 10 years, 11 years.
11.
11.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah,
11
years. Mm-hmm.
And so that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Most people would probably, I don't know. I don't want to say kill. That's not a good verb. I try to be really careful in the words I use.
Yeah.
They'd be very envious of your position of being a company for 11 years, bringing you on later, in the mix to join the company. Your daughter's in the company, and now you guys are at 43 plus, maybe 50 employees by now.
Yeah,
right?
we're getting close to that. We're creeping up there.
So there's a lot to be said for how you grow, and
and
there's going to be some ups and downs along the way, and we're going to explore all that.
Right. Yeah.
But I think I first want to talk about your family. And the reason so is if you go back to episode 51, I interviewed Brandon Bishop from the Madison County Foster and Adoptive Agency Association, association, McFAPA, and they do fostering.
Okay.
And one thing that he mentioned, and we were talking about him and his wife, was both the couple has to be all in if they're going to do something like fostering.
Yes.
And so here you've adopted a child.
Yes.
Your youngest.
Yep.
Her name is Anniston, right?
Yes.
But it's not just that, but then also as we go throughout this episode, your relationship to your husband, because you also work together.
Yes.
And so you kind of have to be all in on the relationship to have your spouse be, in something like construction, which can be very stressful. And there's a lot of things outside your control or things inside your control. And how do you keep pace in a very competitive market? But then also on the adoption side.
Yeah.
So can we, let's first start with Terry.
Okay. Yeah.
And kind of how you met.
Yeah. So.
And ultimately, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. Where it all began. So really, you kind of have to go a little bit further back than that. So when I was a senior in high school, I found out that I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. So she was born 1 month before graduation. So, that changes a lot of things in your life, and where you thought you might go, you end up not going. And so I ended up staying here and getting a job with a local home builder. And so prior to that, like when I was 16 and driving, my parents were like, you need to get a job. And I'm like, okay, fine. So my stepdad, who was in construction, worked for a local home builder, got me an internship one summer. So that's kind of where a lot of this began is, he got me that internship. They said it was time to get a job. So here I am working a job. And then my boss at the new home builder had remembered me from that internship. And that's how I got the job with Adams Homes, which is also where my husband works. So that's kind of how we met. And at the time, young mom, life was a little rocky, If I could look back at that poor young girl and I would tell her so many things. But so that is where Terry and I met. He's actually from Pensacola. So he moved up here with Adams Homes and started building houses with them. That's where I worked as well. And so we kind of met that way. And then once our relationship kind of went to the next level, we were like, maybe we should work together. And I wanted to stay home, as a stay-at-home mom. And so that worked out really well for us in those beginning years. And then we had 2 more kids at the time. And then, so we have the daughter that's the oldest, which is from my previous marriage. And then
Lily Grace.
Lily Grace.
Yeah,
Lily Grace. She works with us now, which I'm sure we'll get further into later. But, and then we have 2 boys, Weston and Truett, and they're now 15 and 13. And when
Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the names, because I love it. They're different in a way, right? They're probably more, not Lily Grace as much, but Truett and Anniston, I would say more like surnames at times than. But can you talk about each of the kids and the inspiration for their names?
So when Lily was born, or when I was pregnant with Lily, I knew I wanted something Grace. And actually, we were sitting in class one day, and you would think she's named after a flower, but she's actually not. Like the weather was on in class, and it was Hurricane Lily.
Okay.
And when I saw Hurricane Lily, I was like, oh, I love the name Lily. And so that's where Lily came from. And the Grace was part of that too. So, so she's Lily Grace. Weston, I really had thought back about this, trying to remember where we came up with Weston. And I honestly cannot remember, but Terry and I both really liked that name. We thought it sounded strong. And, for boys, we wanted strong sounding names. So that's where Weston came from. Truett actually came from, you always talk about names with the family when you're expecting a little one. And so we were at a family gathering talking about that. And my aunt was like, what about Anderson Truett? That's what she said. And Truett, she had gotten from, now his name escapes me. He's a Christian singer. Actually, his son passed away. Very popular Christian singer, and I'm going to think about it probably tonight at midnight. But that is where she got Truett from. And I really liked Anderson, but Truett really stuck with me. Like, loved that name. So that's where that came from. And actually, I get asked a lot if it's after Truett Cathy from Chick-fil-A.
Oh, gosh.
He's the founder of Chick-fil-A. I was like, no, it's actually the singer. So that's their names. And then when I was pregnant with Weston, actually, like, you have a girl name or a boy name, and my husband Terry always liked the name Anniston, and I think he did literally get it from Jennifer Aniston. But he always loved that name. So that was actually one of our girl names. When we were thinking about that process before we knew we were having a boy. So that name always kind of stuck. So yeah, that's kind of their names. And then when Truett was little, so I mean, I'm thinking he was probably like 2 months old. Like he was still in a papoose. Like I strapped that kid to me to go everywhere. He was the third kid, you know. So the subsequent children get strapped to you, and they're along for the ride at all times. So I had an acquaintance at the time that was actually going through the process, and we ran into them one day at the cookie store, and they had just matched with
Is that in Athens, the cookie store?
Yeah, it was the Nestle Toll House store. It's not there anymore.
Oh, okay.
But that was kind of like a weekly treat for the kids.
Sure.
So we happened to be there all at the same time, and they were going through this process of adopting from China, and their little girl, their youngest at the time, had this picture of this little girl, and she showed it to me. She's like, "This is my new little sister. We're going to go get her." And something just grew in my heart that day, and I was like, oh, I have to do that. You know, like that, like the Lord just planted something, and it was not ever going to go away. And at the time, I wasn't at the age to be able to adopt from China. There's all these parameters, and you have to be, I think it was 30. You had to be 30, and I was not anywhere close to 30 because, like I said, my family life started very early for me. So I was not quite 30 yet, but it was just in me, you know, like it had been planted, that seed was there, and it was not going to go away. So I talked to my husband about it, and you know, we had this little baby, and he's like, "You're crazy." Like we're not adopting a kid from China. What are you talking about? You know, we just had a baby. Why are you even thinking about this? So that's when you know it's from the Lord, when it seems kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You know, especially like given the timing that I had this newborn, and I'm already thinking about this. How
old was Anniston at the time?
So Truett would have been the little baby, okay. And he was literally like 2 months old, probably.
Oh, he was only 2 months old.
Yeah, he was
wow.
like,
that
he was
is
new.
soon. Yeah.
So that's why my husband's looking at me like, we're not even talking about any other children right now. You just had one. So
can we just get him out of diapers?
Yeah, like let's just. And for him, he was done because both of our boys had to spend a little bit of time in the NICU. It wasn't nothing dramatic, but when you're a new parent, it feels very dramatic at the time. So for him, he was like, no, we're done, you know. So fast forward, because Truett was 6 when I went to go get her, I believe. Yeah. Fast forward, I had been praying about it for forever, and he was just a hard no for the longest time. And I don't think he'll mind me saying that because it was true. He was a hard no. He just was like, our family's complete. You know, to him, our family was complete. And there was this time, and I just had this desire. So one night I was sitting there, and I just kind of got mad at God because I'm like, you given me this desire, but this other person has to be in consent with me to be able to do this thing. And he's just not feeling it, you know, like it's not there for him. So I got mad at God. I was like, if this is meant to be, you're going to have to get him on board with this or take it away from me, you know, like take that desire away from me because I can't continue to live with this knowing that I need to do this thing and I can't do it, you know? So then I kind of forgot about it. And then probably maybe like 2 or 3 months later, out of the blue, Terry comes to me and is like, you know, I think that we can adopt. I think I'm interested in it. Like I've done research in it. I think we can do it. And my jaw, you know, hit the floor, and I thought he was joking. You know, I was like, "Don't joke with me. That's not funny. You know how long I've been wanting to do this. So if you're not being serious, I'm gonna be really mad at you." So he's like, "No, I am being dead serious." And in that, you know, like I still get goosebumps thinking about it because like that could have only come from the Lord, you know. Yeah. So the next day I was like, who can I give money to start this process so that he can't back out? Just because of how long it took, I thought. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't back out. But once he was in too.
So what year? Was this like 2017?
2018.
It was 2018. Yeah. That's when the process started.
That's when it started, September 2018. Okay. Yep.
And then how long does it take?
So they typically tell you 2 years, but I like to be an overachiever. And I kept saying, I'm going to get it done in under a year. I just knew I was. And I think it's because I knew Anniston was out there. I knew I was going to find her. But we finished it in 11 months. So it was unheard of. It was unheard of. And it is not for the faint of heart. I mean, I've got a binder about this thick of paperwork that we had to go through, and it was a lot. From medical appointments to appointments with social workers. I mean, it's just, and then you've got to finances. You got to give financial information. It is an arduous process, to say the least. So.
Yeah. If you don't mind, can we go back to your senior year
Yeah.
real quick? Because it just occurred to me. You were pregnant basically the entire year.
Yeah, my whole
Right?
senior year.
And how was that? I mean, did you have a... I would assume some people, it takes maybe a little time to warm up and come back around to like, hey, we're still friends no matter what the circumstance. Right. But, just talk a little bit about that.
So my closest friends were like just 100% supported me from the very beginning. And, when you're in that situation, my biggest thing for me, and really anytime that I've met a challenge in my life, is trying to keep a sense of normalcy. Mm-hmm. And so for some in that situation, they kind of probably run away from that. But for me, when I'm stressed, I need that sense of normalcy and anchor. But, there were a lot of people that said things about me, but I didn't even know until after, like way later. Mm. And I think my friends and the people that really loved me and cared for me, kind of protected me a little bit from some of the things people were saying. And so, it's definitely a pariah and it's definitely a statistic, but but at the end of the day, I knew that when I found out I was pregnant with her, that was my life. That's what she's mine, and I was going to take care of her, and I was bound and determined. And my friends, the people that were close to me, knew that I would, and so they very much supported me. But that was a trying time, and for sure that it really. I would like to say it's character building, but I don't even know if that's the correct word for it. But she's a huge blessing, and I think to myself, where would I be if I hadn't had her? Mm-hmm. And that's where we know God takes things that I don't even want to say intended for harm. Sometimes it is intended for harm, but takes the mistakes that we may make or the things that seem like a mistake and turns them into something good. And that's been a theme throughout my whole life.
Yeah. That's grace for you, right?
Exactly.
It's in her name.
Yeah. Yeah. So
did that affect like where you were in sports or cheerleading or something that affected your ability to participate?
Yeah. So I danced all growing up from the time I was 3 years old, and I was on the dance team, and of course, in the rules, you can't really actually be on the dance team and be pregnant. So I did have to give that up, and that was tough. But my coach was actually really, really graceful about it, and really merciful. It still allowed me to be kind of involved, just not in that same capacity. Yeah, just kind of be around choreography, maybe kind of help with practices, and so she was really great about it. And I kind of was surprised because she was kind of tough. So I thought, but she showed me grace as well. And then so I always grew up dancing at the dance company, which is
right down the road from you, right?
Yeah, right down the road, and they're still here today and still going strong, and they were a huge support to me. And I can only imagine what probably other parents were saying, because I understand what that looks like. But they made the point to stick by me no matter what, and they were not going to ask me to leave. And I danced up until the point that I gave birth to Lily Grace, and I was actually in the recital a month later.
Really?
Yeah. So again, that sense of normalcy. Now I didn't do all the dances I was supposed to, obviously, but I was still in the few that I could do, and they still made a place for me and allowed me to do finish out that year. I danced on the stage at dance competition even, and I mean, I was pregnant. Now we did Men in Black, so it worked out great because I was in a tuxedo, so I was able to kind of hide that.
Yeah.
But they still showed me that grace and gave me exactly what I needed at that time. Yeah. As far as feeling normal and being able to still have my life. Obviously, things change immediately when you're pregnant, so you're not, running around with your friends as much or doing all those things. But they still supported me, which was huge.
So then, and where was your internship with? Who was that with?
So that was Westminster Homes.
Westminster Homes.
And they got, a lot of these home builders, they get bought out and bought out and bought out again. So I don't even know where you could say those people were. They probably are dispersed over other home builders at this point in time. But yeah, that was Westminster Homes. And my stepdad was an estimator for them. And actually, coincidentally, he's an estimator for us now. So
oh, cool.
So yeah, it's full circle. And I had not really thought about that until recently, how that's really where my construction background really started. And I was 16. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, it's also interesting too, because you're quoted like your stubbornness, right? Yeah. You're not going to take no for an answer. Yeah. And now and actually, you know what? Why don't we just bring it up? I have an article that.
Oh, goodness.
This is something different. And there. This is from 2018.
Okay.
This is Cision PR Newswire. And it's a story on you all. And it says, when asked her, I'm going to read over here. When asked her advice to newcomers in the industry, Marsh states, be stubborn in the best way. Do not take no for an answer. Research what you need to do to turn a no into a yes. Be patient. Nothing happens overnight. It takes diligence to get through all of the requirements that come with the territory of this industry. When you accept that and take the time to take the proper steps, the sky will be your only limitation. You and your business have to be ready at the same time to take the next best step.
Wow, those are
So there
great
you go.
words. Who said that? No, I'm just kidding.
Do you remember typing that up? Or?
I do, actually. And I still hold to that today. I still would tell anybody getting to this, you do have to utilize your stubbornness. There's a lot of red tape in this industry. And I think, my stubbornness has gotten me in a lot of trouble also, but it's also gotten me a lot of success. So it can be rightly directed or wrongly directed, just depending on how you want to direct yourself. So
sure.
So yeah.
So when you first meet, so it sounds like you meet Terry at your what was the name of that builder again?
That was Adams Homes.
Adams Homes. I
think that somehow along that way, because the interesting thing is, I believe it was in the same office as Westminster. So I can't remember if they bought out Westminster, but somewhere in that, there was a lot of the same people, and it was in the same office. So I guess they did buy out Westminster, but there was a little bit of a break there. But my boss that had been at Westminster remembered me and called me up and was like, hey, would you like a job? And I was like, I definitely need a job. So yes, I would.
Yeah. Right.
And so I was administrative assistant, and I got to kind of see all aspects of the home building process, from permitting, sales, because they have sales agents that, handle all of their sales, the production side, contracts, how they do their bills, how they pay people. The whole process, start to finish, I got to touch a little bit on each part of that, because as administrative assistant, I was just kind of there to help anybody that needed the help. So, I had my few things that I actually did do, but then I was also a floater. So,
and they were doing everything. They were building homes.
Start to finish.
They were doing start to finish.
Ground up, production style homes. So, there's like a set of plans that they utilize, and most of those production home builders is kind of the format. They're all kind of have a general format, but yeah. So that's where we met. And so he had actually started his career. He'd gone to college for computers, which still makes me laugh to this day, because I could never see him working on computers. But, in the time, late 90s, early 2000s, that was what everybody did. So he had been in college almost 2 years, I believe, when he got approached about working for Adams Homes. And he was like, I could keep doing college, or I could go start making money. I think I'll take making money. So he started with them. He ended up moving down to Orlando, got all of his training done. And actually, this is a great story that he tells that I had not even known about until recently. But when he first moved down there was a house that they had done the foundation like backwards or something. Something wasn't right with it. Well, his boss said, we're going to need you to tear down that entire foundation. He gave him a sledgehammer and made him actually do it himself.
Break it apart.
He had to break it apart himself. He said, I'll tell you what, I never, ever poured a foundation wrong after that. But it wasn't his mistake. It was whoever was there before him. But he still sledgehammer and hauled it off, the whole 9 yards. So so he got his training in down there. And I think he was there like 2 or 3 years. And then moved back up to kind of where he was from for a short time. And then news spread that they were moving up this way. And he was like, well, sure, I guess I'll go to Huntsville. And he'll tell you that he landed here in Huntsville in February. He was wearing shorts. And he quickly realized that he needed a jacket. But and then also, with he was young and, male, early 20s, used to kind of have in the Orlando scene. And when you move to Huntsville from Orlando, especially back then, there's really not a lot going on here. So it was a big change for him. But yeah, so that's where we ended up meeting. And at the time, I was in a relationship with my oldest daughter's father, but it wasn't a very good one. We were just too young. He was not really ready. And we didn't know how to be married. We didn't know how to have a relationship. So anyways, we ended up getting divorced pretty quickly after getting married. And, a lot of people were like, well, we saw that coming. It's like, but, it felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We wanted to give that a try. So we did. But yeah, so it did not work out. And Terry and I had kind of worked together, but I didn't really know him super well outside of work. But after my divorce, one day he calls me up and he's like, would you like to go to Talladega to the races? And I was like, Talladega? But, at the time I was like, I just need to go do something else, so I was like, sure, why not? So we did. And then the rest was history. So that was our first date.
Do you like NASCAR?
No, we do not watch NASCAR anymore.
Okay. You don't.
We did for a while, and we were into it for a while, but those races are really long, and then the more kids you have, the less time you have to watch those kinds of things. And he watched football and liked to fish and hunt, so something had to go in NASCAR.
So he was aware that you had been married and had a child and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you're kind of in that situation, you're like, who's going to want to be with, this young person that has a child and, some baggage, that comes along with that. But I don't know. The Lord brought us together, and he knew we were meant to be, and he was able to deal with that.
He's a tall guy.
He is a tall guy.
How tall is he?
He's 6 foot.
Oh, he's 6 foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 6 foot. So
he looks like he played football or something.
Yeah, he does look like he played football. He did play football in high school.
Did he?
Yes. But yeah. So he played football in high school. Yeah, he's definitely got the football build for sure.
Okay.
Unfortunately, our boys have taken more after their mother, but they play baseball, and it's worked out great.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm the runt.
Yeah.
I got nothing when it came to good genes.
Yep.
I guess I have some good genes. But
yes. Yeah. Just not the height of the height variety. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about the dancing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. My wife Wendy's in the studio, and I think it was near the dance company. Is it also the Point? Is that another store or another studio? The Point, like dancewear.
Okay. Yes. Point Dancewear. So the dance company is actually on Hughes Road.
Oh, it's on Hughes.
But there is a dance studio by that.
It's on Sullivan, I think.
Yeah, there is a dance studio over there, and I can't remember what it's called, but you are correct. Yeah, there is one there. But so the dance company, they opened in 1990, and I started dancing there when they opened. So I had actually gone to another studio before that, Pandas, who closed like 2 years later, and then they kind of took over, and so that's how I ended up there. And so from the time I was 5, and when I was a little girl, I told them I was going to take over their studio. I would always tell them, one day when y'all are old in a wheelchair, I'm going to own this studio. I would always say that to them, and they would always joke back with me about that. But it was a large, huge part of my life. And I mean, every afternoon when my boys complain about their baseball practices, I'm like, you don't know anything about, I mean, hours on end.
What were you specializing in dance?
So I did it all: ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop. At the time, lyrical, which has now kind of become contemporary. Mm-hmm. All of it. So, and actually, after I had Lily Grace and graduated, I actually taught there for a very long time too. So we did a little bit of everything. Danced competitively, and then once I got into high school, did the dance team as well. Danced competitively with the dance team. So it took up many hours of my week. That was my second home.
Were you also? I know Wendy, when she danced, she was like a flyer. Were you doing stuff like that with guys, and they were doing
we
aerials?
didn't have as many male. We had a few males come through, and there were times that and sometimes, they'd even we'd do tricks with girls, sometimes too. And so, yes, being the short person, I did normally get lifted or thrown around a little bit. I did cheer for 1 year at Liberty, which was where I went to middle school at. And I was a flyer then too. So, they loved to throw me around being the short person.
Well, when we moved here, I guess it was last summer, we started taking like ballroom dancing again, because we used to take ballroom dancing when we were in Virginia.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
And we enjoed it. The tango, the foxtrot, the rumba, the cha-cha.
Yeah, that's fun.
Samba. But I thought I was so proud of myself, because I go into I think it's like the Point dance
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
And I bought like a gift certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I didn't get it. I bought her what I thought was a great outfit.
Yeah.
For our dancing, our ballroom dancing. And it proved to be, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I had to return it, and then they gave me a gift certificate. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you go into that dance store and you get whatever
Just
you
whatever
want.
you want. Yeah.
You just get whatever you want.
That's always a safe bet, right?
Yeah. I was like, in my mind, I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. The thought was there. That's all that matters.
So give me a couple highlights from, I guess you dance competitively.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what are some in your mind when you kind of, as we get older, right, we hold on to memories and highlights, and when you think of your dancing career.
Yeah. So from a younger age, we did Annie Warbucks, and I was Annie in the production, and that won all kinds of awards. And we talked about that for years, that I was Annie in the production Annie.
Did you wear a wig and everything?
Oh, yeah. I wore the wig and everything. I still remember going down to the wig shop to pick one out. And my mom was like, this thing was very expensive, so you better take care of it. You hear that a lot, but that was kind of out of the ordinary. And it was a very expensive wig, and it was very believable. So that was a highlight. I think we went to nationals that year and even won with it, but I can't remember for sure. But I do know that on the regional level, we won the whole competition, because it was a really cute production, very well put together. And who doesn't love Annie?
Yeah,
so
sure.
That would be one. Gosh, there were so many dances we did. We didn't go to nationals every year for like the studio. But that was always a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like one year we got to go to Disney World, and that was a lot of fun.
It was always in Orlando?
Typically, but nowadays they kind of move it around.
Yeah.
So like once I became a teacher, we go to different places like Ocean City, Maryland, I think was one of them that we went to. And but back when I was growing up, everything was in Orlando, I feel like. Dance team competitions were always in Orlando, and we got to go to Universal and Disney both. And that was always, a highlight and a lot of fun.
Sure.
So yeah, it was. And then once I began teaching, I got to choreograph and do it from that perspective, which was really cool too. So
yeah. So then you make the decision to stay at home.
Yeah.
To raise your boys.
Yep.
And you're teaching.
Yep, teaching dance in the
company.
evenings. And so, yeah, I always held on to that, and then started my daughter in dance, and she danced for a long time, too. But, yeah, I stayed home, taught in the evenings. And, both Terry and I have the personality that we like to be in charge, I guess you could say.
Type A.
Very type A. We like to be leaders. We like to be in charge. And there was a part of me that always knew that he probably would never be truly happy until he was his own boss. And I think that some people are just that way. That's just how their personality is, and that's how they are. That's what God made them. So, deep down, there's always kind of that feeling like, that may come up at some point. And so one day he comes home from work, and he's like, there's just not a lot of good roofers in town. And, I was like, okay. He's like, well, what if, I started a roofing company? And I was like, okay. Me thinking about it, I'm like, well, we have a steady job. You make good money. We have good benefits, all those kinds of things that you think about. We're comfortable. Everything's good. But then deep down, I was like, I do know that this man would be a great boss. And I do know that I think that he'd be happier if he was in that role and did have his own thing. So I was like, sure. So we took our life savings at the time and put it into this idea. And of course, when you take your life savings, I am a little bit of a control freak too, I guess. I can say that out loud. I can accept it. I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I didn't initially. Yeah, they're my. I will own it. I will claim it. Initially, though, it was really just him, and he had another guy that they were kind of running it together. And so I was kind of out of it, other than like just being a cheerleader and like, yes, you can do this. In the background, I was still raising kids. Still on the trajectory of thinking I'm going to take over that dance company one day.
Yeah.
That was still kind of my trajectory, and really had not even thought of jumping in on it.
And real quick, he was frustrated at what he was doing with the roofing contractors or whatever
Yes.
service. Maybe that was
Yeah.
something that was under his.
Yeah.
It's similar to like the concrete story.
Right.
He's tired of being screwed over in a way, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term,
Yeah.
on those contractors. And
Yeah.
he's like, you know what, this is somewhat of a it can be a very lucrative thing.
Yeah.
And I would do it better. I would manage it
Yes.
better. I'd have better
Yeah.
quality control. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And I think that he saw too, you know, like definitely for sure there was a hole in the marketplace here, and every house needs a roof, you know. But when we initially started, it was all new construction because that was our backgrounds. That was his background. That was where his relationships were. And so it was kind of like a natural progression. And that was kind of like the door in, you know, to the roofing industry. And but at the time, I mean, we really didn't know where it was going to go. You know, it was servicing the home builders in the area with good quality roofing, but it was also, we kind of gave this new aspect of where we did the labor and material. So previously it was, the material was separate from the labor and you had to kind of coordinate the two. And so he had this idea of like, well, just doing a turnkey package, you know, where the company itself would handle the material and the labor. So, you know, and that took out a little bit of a headache for the contractors, you know, for the builders, because that's one less thing that they're having to deal with. The roof is going to get put on and they don't have to worry about how it gets put on other than
So real quick,
when it needs to be put on.
Play back what I'm hearing. If you're a builder, then previously you had to buy and negotiate the material side of it separately, and then find someone to do actually install it.
To do the labor. Yeah. So there was normally like a supplier involved as well as labor.
Okay.
And I think that was always like a frustrating thing. And for him, you know, coming from that background, and he's like, you know, we can make this better by offering it together.
Yeah.
And they know that it's going to be here at the same time, and it's going to be, because, you know, maybe the material got dropped, but where's the labor? You know, those kinds of things. But if one person's handling it, then it's going to get done. So that was kind of like the model that they came up with. And
then when you were working in your internship, and then you started at Adams Homes, did you have some sort of liking when you look back towards like the roofing side, or any sort of the contracting process, the permitting? Was there something that was like, hey, yeah, that kind of, that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think just getting to touch on all of it, it all kind of made sense. And, you know, maybe somewhere back there might have been something about the roofing that I just don't remember. I'll have to ask Terry that if he recalls anything like, you know, being maybe drawn to that or noticing things about it myself. But yeah, I kind of got to touch on all of it. Obviously, he was in all of it, you know, day in and day out. I got to touch a little bit of all of it. But for me specifically, no, not necessarily roofing. And, you know, roofers tend to not have like, you know, traditionally the best, you know, persona, you know, that especially because there's so many that will chase storms, and that's kind of given roofing a bad name. And so I joke and say it was definitely not my dream growing up to be a roofer. and when he approached me about it, I just was like, yeah, sure. You know, like, let's just see what happens. But I really didn't know like what it would turn into. And I think that the statistics today say like a lot of companies don't make it past the 5-year mark, which is crazy to think about. But we were very fortunate in having the connections that we had at the time to kind of give us that good foundation to get started. And so, yeah, that's where we started, and Adams Homes kind of paved the way for it, taught us what we knew, and kind of got us the foot in the door. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So anyway, so TPG is our first platinum sponsor. So Lisa DeFalco is the CEO. Awesome story as far as woman-owned business. She invented the industry of quality assurance for call centers. So anytime you call anybody and it says this call may be monitored for quality assurance, she literally invented that.
That's cool.
In Omaha.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, actually, it was in New Jersey. And
Yeah.
she's from Jersey, and that's where her first office was. And then they started TPG and kind of been full-fledged in Omaha. And now they have an office here in Huntsville because
That's
they're
cool.
introducing, they have a thing called Anna. Her name is Anna. And she's an artificial intelligence engine that helps with the 15 million calls that are recorded every month.
Goodness.
That's on their responsibility, because
Yeah.
they used to, in the old days, you couldn't record.
Right.
There wasn't the law in place to allow you to do that.
Right.
And so
So somebody had to sit?
You had to sit there, and if the call came in, and a lot of times customers would just come in, and that owned companies, and their customers are now calling to say they want to hear what's going on. What are the customers saying about Ridgeline?
Right.
And they would listen.
Okay.
And then so she kind of had it handed to her in a way where this customer, and she was just working the call center. This customer's like, well, wouldn't it be really cool if like we actually could monitor these things and listen to them later and listen to sentiment and all that. So big shout out to TPG.
That's cool. Yeah.
As we have now a company owner here in Ridgeline.
Yes.
And I would imagine your customers want to know, you would want to know what your customers are saying.
Yes.
Now let's do this. And actually I do have some testimonials.
Okay.
But let's pull up the website. Here's the Ridgeline website, a family-owned quality service. And there's your logo, and it's featuring on the front, I guess, some of your suppliers as far as Gaff, Tamco, Select, different products that you use.
Yep.
But I would like to play a little bit of this video.
Okay.
Which features you.
Yes.
And any of the videos that I play, there's always a few different angles of questions that I have related to them.
Ridgeline Construction knows how important home is to you. It's where your family gathers for special moments and holidays. It's your safe haven during life's storms. At Ridgeline, we know that your home is more than just 2x4s and shingles. It's part of you. We take that seriously. Ridgeline Construction doesn't just work on your house. We work hard to become a part of your family because we understand that this is your home, your pride, your investment.
Ridgeline has amazing customer service. I'd call them, they'd be out within the day. They're gonna do exactly what needs to be done for your house.
We want the process to be one in which you have complete trust and understanding in the services we provide. Our team is committed to helping you navigate the needs you have, be it our warranty process, working with your insurance company for storm or hail damage claims, to choosing designs and custom needs for your home. Ridgeline Construction works hard to ensure that our team members are well trained to do the very best job for you. Our family invests time and effort in training our roofers and carpenters in new and innovative roofing processes.
The guys were real great. They put tarps out so that if anything fell off, it wasn't gonna mess up shrubs, it wasn't gonna get in the yard or driveways, anything like that. I'm quite impressed with the amount of guys that can come in and get that all done in really one day. Yeah, they even added vents on the roof. They actually did an improvement in the process of getting a new roof, so they'll tell you exactly what you need.
Trust is earned.
Let's stop there. I love it.
It's always like, oh, there's my face. There's my voice.
A couple things to note. One is you keep that family title going, right? It's not there's companies, sometimes Walmart was the first to kind of call their employees associates.
Yeah.
You know, and just use different terminology to be a little bit more endearing or more caring, but family.
Yeah.
You know, you never really said company.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is that something that
is important to us? Because I think that, I mean, next to, like tangible assets, you know, the home is most people's biggest asset, you know, tangible. But so I think that, you know, you really want to know that whoever is working on your house cares about it that much, you know, and, you know, even though we're contractors, there's been times that we've dealt with bad contractors on our own personal stuff. So we want to convey that we care about each project as if it's, you know, our own families, you know. So, and truthfully, we are a family-owned business. We have, like I said, my stepdad, who works for us as an estimator. Terry's cousin is our general manager here, if I could talk. We also have, of course, Lily Grace has joined us. We also have some good friends that Terry grew up with that work with us. And so it is truly like a family atmosphere. And I think that kind of gives us the ability to look at things, you know, from that perspective and try to offer our services in that way. Because, I mean, like I said before, roofers have sometimes a negative connotation because you know, we are in a very storm-ridden area. So easily, we've had plenty of times where these roofers have come in to town just to, capitalize on that storm damage, and then they're gone, And so our big point is we're not that contractor. We're here to stay. And the interesting and kind of the funny thing is that Tampa, our newest location, you kind of still battle a little bit of that in new locations, even though to us we've been around for forever, but to a new area we haven't, so you kind of have to reprove yourself every time you join a new market. So yeah, that's kind of a big deal to us.
Well, yeah, I hadn't really thought of it till you just said it. I was thinking of your expansion to basically the Mobile area. Spanish Fort is the Mobile area, right?
Yes,
and
yeah.
Pensacola and Tampa, which are all on the water.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
And much more hurricane prone.
Coastal, yeah. Hurricane
Coastal.
prone.
But Huntsville, tornadoes, we don't have hurricanes. But of course, it's a growing area.
Yes.
So I guess let's go ahead and talk about the expansion first, and then we'll come back. But, I understand your husband had family in Pensacola, has ties to Pensacola.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to saying, okay, let's keep our headquarters here in Athens in the greater Huntsville area, that is, I guess, the decision there is because it's growing.
Right.
It's just growing, right?
Yeah.
New build, the homes older homes need a re-roofing. Right. But then you also have, is it fair to say, well, Mobile and Tampa, which are much more prone to coastal storms, and you have damage, and therefore it's just that cycle that's going to continue, right, as a roofing company.
Right. And Florida's insurance stipulations are, such that if you go to sell a home, a lot of the times before you can get insurance on it, to get that mortgage, you've got to replace the roof at cost. Somebody's got to decide, who's going to pay for that. But, Florida's insurance laws are pretty stringent on that. And so they've got programs out there that you pretty much have to replace your roof. It ends up being about every 5 to 8 years. So that, when it comes to real estate, that's kind of a negotiating thing that it has to be done. So, it's very renewable in those areas for that reason. Now, in saying that, Florida is very hard to get licensed in because of that cycle. There's a lot of roofers down there, so trying to capitalize on that. So it's a hard place to get into. The testing for licenses is very stringent. So, and as it should be, because that is a place that people could easily be taken advantage of, obviously, if they don't have really stringent laws and rules on these contractors to make sure that we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing. And
so what are some of the immediate disqualifiers it sounds like they're going to get like you just said, there's going to be a high volume of companies who are interested because if a storm comes through, right? It's money.
Right. Well, you do have to, for most licenses, you do have to prove your financial stability. So that can be a disqualifier for some people. You do have to show your experience. That can be a disqualifier at times for people. And then you do have to take a really horrible test or a few really horrible tests. I say they're horrible, but those are things where my stubbornness kicks in and pushes me through it. But they're very hard tests with big books, lots of books. I had to take some of them. Most of the Florida tests I had to take twice because
really?
That's how hard they are. Yeah. But once you start down that path, you're not going to stop or give up. But that could be a disqualifier for some people if they just can't pass the test,
Now, is there only like one officer at a company that has to be certified, or are there also requirements?
You can have qualifiers, so to speak. There are rules around that, but I guess since it's not applicable to us, I don't exactly know what that is. But yes, you do have to have a qualifier of some sort. And so kind of dialing it back some, when we started, we were doing mainly new construction. And so, and we were just here. And when you're doing new construction like that, you're kind of working under, the builder, and they're kind of assuming all the licensing and stuff like that. So, for a while it kind of wasn't a thing. And then, just through doing what we did and getting asked by maybe some of the people that work with them, like, hey, could you come look at our roof, or could you look at my mom's roof? And it became this thing where we were getting outside of that. So then we had to figure out, okay, what do we need to do next to make sure that we're, in compliance? So that's where our home builder's license came in. And that one was, I don't want to call it easy because it wasn't easy, but I sat for it, passed it. I studied really hard for it, going into it. And I was not always the best student growing up. So study skills were something I really had to learn as an adult. And little kids running around, to add to the mix. So we got our home builder's license, and that kind of got us where we needed to go to kind of help these extra people that were asking for that help, especially because we had some big storms hit around that time here in this area. Then we started getting asked, like, well, can you come look at this commercial job? I've got this commercial property, or somebody might have referred us, and this is a commercial property. And at the time, you can only do so much with your home builder's license when it comes to that. So it's like, okay, well, now what's the next step? So then it became general contractor's license. That test was pretty hard, but sat for it, passed it. I think that one did take me 2 tries, if I'm not mistaken. That one's pretty tough. I mean, it was several. They are open book, but
and does Terry have to take these tests as well?
No.
Just you?
Yeah, just me. So that's kind of what catapulted me to become the president, because I did all the work and,
right.
for the most part. His experience does come into play and helps with that. But as far as like studying and proving the financial stability and all the hoops that you have to jump through, that was all me that I handled. So that kind of catapulted us into me being the president, and he was willing to give that up. So, not really give it up, so to speak, but it, that's just kind of how it works. And it made sense for us to become woman owned as well. And that happened, let's see, when I started getting all the licenses, 2015 is when I got the home builder's license. And then from there, it kind of progressed. And so once I got that general contractor's license, it was like, well, it seems like that's the most logical thing is, since I'm holding the license, is to be majority owner. So that's kind of what got us there. But so we had this office here, got all those licenses, and I have in the past talked a lot, and going back to that article that you pulled up, the stubbornness, how it can serve well, but also capacity. You have to know your capacity at any given time, and we've never been the type to, walk before you crawl. We're going to do it.
Take on too much.
Yeah, we don't want to take on too much, and we're going to do what we have to do to get to that next step. And sometimes it's a no for a little while, and that's where I talk about the no to the yes.
Let me ask you this question before I forget to. So if Mobile was your next stop.
Yeah.
However, did you want to go to, was it originally you wanted to do Pensacola, but then kind of ran into, Florida's really tough. We're not ready for that. Then let's what's the next best option? Let's pull it back into Alabama and find one of those beach areas down there.
Well, so Terry had a really good friend in that area that was kind of looking for a job opportunity. And I think when we originally talked about it, we thought maybe he might move up here and just work with us here. But then it turned into this, well, what if we just tried this, in the Mobile area? And so it, I think a lot of business is trial and error in general, and hopefully the error isn't so big. But there is a lot. You do have to kind of be willing to gamble and take that chance. And so it kind of morphed into, well, we're just going to open an office here. There's enough going on down in that area, especially with new construction. There was a ton of new construction going on in that area. And so that's kind of how we ended up there. I think it was kind of not necessarily the intent once
just
we
started,
but the way that it kind of evolved, it turned into that. And then it worked out really well. So the thought kind of opened up that, we had a lot of contacts, people in Pensacola, that it could be a natural progression, but we did have the licensing that, was kind of there that we had to contend with. So, this is where I have to sit down and look over the process and see, can we achieve this? And at the time, I kind of was like, I don't want to study for another test.
Yeah. To
be honest, but I couldn't say no to the potential that was there. And so that kind of is how that naturally progressed. But, there's a lot that weighs on that, like if I don't pass this test, then we can't do this thing, so.
Yeah. So, and I guess part of that expansion, and to play back what you were just saying before, you started out in roofing and siding, if you will. Then because you do a good job, someone's like, oh, hey, can you do a quick remodel of whatever? So that
come take a look at this.
Come take a look at this, and then that requires you to get the builder's permit, and then that's it. Then someone's like, well, hey, what about this commercial thing?
Yeah.
So you're expanding, but then you're also having to also expand your offerings.
Yes,
and that's where you have to sit for these, and but that makes you even more attractive when you go into a market.
Yes,
because now you're coming in as a a full scale commercial and residential.
Right. Yeah, and especially here in the Huntsville market, commercial is infrastructure is going up everywhere all around us, and there's just a ton of commercial work going on, and that's kind of been a big goal of mine in the last few years is to really get into that market, really learn that market. Because each time, like you say, expanding into new markets is one thing, but expanding offerings, we've kind of done both. And this Huntsville area, our Athens office is always like the test dummy, I like to say. So if we're wanting to expand something, we're going to test it out here first. Since we're here, we can really closely monitor it.
Sure.
Obviously we had great managers in our other locations, but when you are doing something new like this, it does take Terry and I kind of babysitting it to a certain level and kind of honing in the processes so that we can scale that out to the rest of the company. So yeah, we're kind of, this area here is our test dummy area. We test it out here first. And then if we can get a good process, then we're going to expand it out into our other markets. And so yeah, we started doing siding. There was a need there for that here. And it was a natural progression. Like you say, we were getting asked. And so we expanded into that. Well, then we started getting asked in Florida. So guess what? I had to go sit for another test to be able to do that. But that opened us up to do siding. There's a lot of pool enclosures down there, which we have not done any of those yet. But
the lanais.
Yes. Yeah. We're
boy.
getting kind of... That has come up a lot. So, but luckily my license does cover that. But as we get asked, if we think that there's enough interest there to justify growing that capacity, then we will. And that's so. I think it's kind of interesting to think back of how it has been a natural progression. And like I say, we had to say no to some jobs at times because we didn't have the capacity or we didn't have the proper licensing in place, and it hurts to have to say no. So when we've had to say no, it's like, well, what do we need to do to get to where we can say yes to these kinds of projects?
Are you an LLC?
No, we are now a corporation.
What's the legal name?
Ridgeline Construction HSV Inc.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when you see Ridgeline Roofing, those are brands underneath.
Yeah. So like our branding calls us Ridgeline Construction Roofing and Exteriors.
Yeah.
So that's how we're branded everywhere. Interestingly enough, there's a few more Ridgeline constructions or Ridgelines, maybe kind of different variations that are in the area, which can cause some confusion.
And how did Terry choose a name?
So like I said before, he had there was somebody that was kind of working with him, and they kind of came up with that name together, and I really liked it. I didn't really get a true say in it, so to speak, but I actually do really like it. But the top of your roof is called the ridge, like that,
Ridgeline,
so
yeah.
That was kind of where it came from, but it sounded really good. It wasn't like,
And now Florida homes, you look at a picture and you can say, oh, that's a Florida house.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're very distinct, and they're stucco.
Yeah.
And they have the lanai on the back, which I would say arguably, if you're going to be a builder, I think the number one thing to get right in a Florida home is the lanai.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to get that right. You're going to have,
sure.
Otherwise you're going to have geckos running everywhere.
Yes, or alligators, possibly. You never know.
They'll be in your pool.
Yeah, for sure.
But as much as we spend our time outside, like we love our house. We love the house we moved from Virginia, and I think a lot of what was our backyards.
Yeah.
We've always put a lot of money and time and effort into backyard living.
Yeah,
just being outdoors. But I was going to say, what was my point before I went off on that little tangent? Is a roof a roof a roof? Like, because now in Alabama, we don't have a lot of 3-story homes.
Yeah.
We have crawl spaces and some 2-level, some single level.
Right.
A Florida home, even if that style is in Alabama, and it may be in some areas, like Florida is. They're one, they're what, ranch style, they're one level.
Yeah,
but,
some of them are, yeah.
But roofs, if you could, I guess rather than building in the mountains somewhere or the West Coast or in the North, it would seem like there are some similarities, or the differences may not be that different because you're somewhat in the region and you're, but between your 4 markets. But talk us through how different. It sounds like just based on your reaction. No, a roof is not a roof.
Yeah, well, it is essentially, yes. We don't do a lot of those, like the clay tile yet, that you see in Florida. There is a lot of that down there.
The Spanish tile.
That Spanish clay tile look, which is beautiful. That is, I'm sure, on the horizon. The talk is there, but we're not quite there yet. We more specialize in asphalt, shingle roofs, steep slope, which means, the steep slope, which you see here more than you would see in Florida. There's a little less steep, but so that is kind of more what we specialize in. But we also do metal. So metal's huge. I mean, there's some metal here, but that's a bigger deal in the Florida markets because it's more durable. And we actually have our own metal machine that we can fabricate it, fabricate the pieces and parts that go with it. Because when you're thinking about, you want this to be watertight, so the more you can customize, the better. And you could do that with metal. So yeah, as far as like residential goes, there's a handful of things that you can put on a roof, and it is pretty similar. When you start getting into your commercial stuff, though, when you've got flat roofs, there's products called TPO, which actually, when my daughter was so my youngest had to have a pretty big surgery, which we can talk about here shortly, but our room kind of overlooked this roof, and there was a TPO roof, so I got to look at it every day for a little while. But so the TPO you will see on commercial building, you might see on a hospital or a hotel. So that's kind of a bigger, more newer thing that people like to utilize on commercial roofs. There's also like coatings that can be utilized. That's more commercial as well. So yeah, the basic idea and everything is all about.
But to your installer, it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, the steep, the grade, okay, but it's still a coverage area.
Right.
I'm using this product I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
I'm using a nail gun.
Yeah.
I guess the only difference would just be how complicated the roof is, right?
Yeah, and so we have certain crews that they only handle maybe asphalt.
Okay.
We're only going to let certain crews handle the TPO commercial applications. So we definitely do have they specialize in what they do. So and then the metal, that's another kind of specialty. So everybody kind of has their niche within that, and so yeah, that's kind of how that works. But yeah, I mean, the thermal, you're making a thermal envelope, so to speak. So that idea is always there.
Well, should you ever, based on what you had just said, is where this is kind of your test market.
Yeah.
Do you have desires, or has anybody asked you for a Spanish tile roof? And it's like, well, that would look weird to try to test that here potentially in Huntsville, but and this may just be a hard no for you all for a while.
Well, I think we'd definitely be open to it. The problem really comes in at how much they cost, and when people really hear how much they cost and the value isn't here specifically for it versus
but like in Tampa,
Florida, the value's there, so people are probably more willing, and that's where we really would that would be something we could definitely do and we'll definitely do eventually. It's just kind of learning that, and because we have always done so much asphalt shingles, it's just you kind of end up getting what your comfort level is,
your core competence.
And what your core product is. But yeah, definitely we would not turn that down at this point. Here, it would probably be hard to do just because I don't think anybody really wants to pay the premium for those clay tile roofs when it's, like you say, it would look kind of weird in this area. Interestingly enough, too, that some of the manufacturers have created some that look like that's asphalt shingles. And so I've actually seen quite a few of those going up around here, the people that maybe wanted that Spanish style, but maybe don't want to pay the premium for the clay tiles. There's an alternative. So, these roofing manufacturers are getting so savvy and so creative with the products that they're coming up with. And I mean, every day we're seeing new things. Like there's some new products out that are metal, that is more durable. I've heard of some rubber material, which could be very interesting considering the hail aspect. But those are just kind of like new innovative things that really haven't, been tested here per se that we haven't necessarily done, but do I see it going in that direction very much? Yeah, I mean, for sure,
How do you install Spanish tile? Like,
that's a good question. To me personally, I actually do not know how you would do the Spanish tile. I was actually studying it when we were in Tampa the other day, just looking at it from, like a layman.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at it. Because again, like our core product has been those asphalt shingles and those kinds of things. And so it hasn't really come up yet. But it's definitely something that we'd like to look into. But there is some like mortar in between there. And,
I was about to say, you probably have to mortar them or asphalt them or something.
Yeah, there's some mortar involved. And so it's
different.
It's definitely different. And you can kind of maybe marry it and think about it like brick in a way,
Yeah.
The way that it's installed. So I don't know firsthand, exactly how that's done, but maybe we'll know soon. Maybe
How many?
We'll get asked.
What's your employee count right now?
We're at 46 right now.
46.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I guess you also use some sub labor if you have to.
Yeah. So yes, most of the labor is subbed out, but they exclusively work with us, so they know our quality control standards and all those kinds of things. But the way that the industry is set up, it's the most pragmatic way to approach it, just because of insurance and liability and those kinds of things. So everybody kind of has to share it.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. It's a partnership, so we do kind of share the liability in that way. But yeah, we do have subcontractors, and we do have in-house employees too that perform certain tasks.
Sure.
But,
so you're hiring more of the project managers, the foremans. Those are going through your extensive training.
Yes.
And they're the ones on site that meet with the customer. They may or may not get on the roof, but then that's when you turn it over to your subs.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And so, one of the things too for us is that we wanted this model of the person you start talking to is the person you'll end up talking to. Because there's been times even for us that maybe somebody's come in and sold us a product like personally on a personal level, and then you don't ever see that person again, And we didn't really want it to be like that. We wanted people to feel like they have that one point of contact that is going to take care of them start to finish. So yeah, we have project managers. We don't like to call them sales guys or anything like that, because they're truly going to manage the project start to finish. So yeah.
And then how many? I think I know the answer, but how many women do you have working for you?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. How many do we have? We have let's see, myself, Lily Grace, our marketing manager, Karina. We have our HR manager, Christine, AP manager, Nikki. Then we have production staff, Kendra, Hannah, other production staff, Christina. I have Christine and Christina.
There you go.
And Amy.
So 10, more than 10.
Yeah, about 10. Yeah.
It wasn't until my family, we had homes over in Palm Coast, Florida, on just north of Daytona, south of St. Augustine, right? And when my mother had a house, my grandmother had a house that they built. We owned the house next to my mother that we rented out. But when my mother's house was being built, and then similar, related to that, my aunt and uncle used to build homes in Virginia.
Okay.
They stepped away from that, and then they came back into it. They started building in Florida, in Palm Coast.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of back on construction sites when we were visiting family, checking in on their homes and things. And it was cool because it was now a very different construction than what they did in Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
But I had never met a woman laborer.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I walk into this one house that my aunt was, and she was also a broker, and she was a real estate agent. She's a hustler. She could fix anything. And there was this lady named Rocky, and she was doing the tile in one of the showers with the cigarette hanging out of her mouth. And I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. And then and I can't remember the other lady's name. Some other lady had some kind of nickname, and she was up on the roof doing stuff. And I was like, wow. Yeah. I think that's only 0.05% of all labor are women.
It's a very small percent.
In construction.
Yeah. Yeah. So we even have some of our crews. I mean, there's a few ladies out there, and they sling shingles, and those things are heavy. So, I mean, it's, in a male-dominated industry, and I don't like to be feministic about it necessarily, but I do think that women have something to offer. Somebody was asking me last week, why do you think it is that way? And I think because construction traditionally has been so aggressive. Males normally tend to be more aggressive than women in a lot of ways, but women can be very aggressive, and hustlers. But I think that it's just been, there is a bias there a little bit just because men have just done it, and so women trying to break into it, it can be intimidating because just of that aspect, not so much male versus female, but just you are the minority, so that part can be anywhere that anybody's a minority it's intimidating, so yeah, but I mean, I've seen those ladies sling those shingles, and kudos to them because I mean that is hard work. Those things are heavy, and they sling it just like the guys.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
It would be interesting to go back and do like a survey, let's say in each decade, and let's say the 70s, 80s, 90s, it doesn't matter, all the way up to present. And if you asked like a young girl, teen, and then become a teenager, would construction be interesting to you?
Right.
And just see what they say.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason they don't pursue that. Well, why didn't you pursue it? It would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Is it something that's just it's changed even more over time?
Right.
Is it the fault of the parent where when it came Saturday and it was time to mow the lawn, I should have just told my daughter,
right.
like, hey, Alicia, my daughter's name's Alicia. We have 4 kids as well. Go mow the lawn.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not going to take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So if we just, I think a lot of our problems are we've just become too soft.
Yeah.
We don't
right.
ask, and especially as we become more affluent, and we're not the way we grew up.
Yeah.
And we enjoy these things. We enjoy
right.
paying for people to mow our lawns, and
yeah.
enjoy for people to rake our yard or whatever. I don't know. It'd be interesting though to find out from a young lady and in the Rocket City, right? There's seemingly all this pressure on, hey, you should be an aerospace engineer, you should be a PhD.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? There's Lauren Mills Marsh. She's a home builder now.
Yeah.
Was in dance.
Yeah.
A natural progression from dance into home building.
Yeah, right.
Right?
It's just a natural.
But no, and I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, other than it's just, it's male dominated.
It is. And I think it's okay that there are certain things that men do, women do, and
sure,
whatever. But, that I think that we balance each other, and, my husband and I balance each other, both in the home and at work. And so I think that that's where women, maybe like you say, there just hasn't always been enough of a push for it, enough information out there for women, and people just kind of tend to gravitate towards what's their comfort level. And, like I say, I joke, growing up, I wasn't like, yes, I want to be a roofer, like it just, but I knew the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to have growing up. I knew that I wanted to be a leader. I've always kind of had that way about me. And so I think that sometimes for women going into this kind of a male-dominated thing, it's like you feel like you have to be super aggressive. And if you're not really willing to do that, then it can seem intimidating. And so I think that there is like just a combination. And like you say, here specifically, my grandfather was an aerospace engineer. My dad's an electrical engineer. His dad before him was, and my uncle was, but my stepdad being in construction is kind of where that ended up, that path opened up. And so you never know where that path is going to open up. But I do think that there is a lot of like be an engineer, around here. But
and the same applies for boys.
Yeah,
it's the same.
true.
It's the same example of like the lawn mowing, like,
yeah,
or cutting down a tree or just doing something physical. We're not asking nearly as much as what maybe was asked in prior generations.
For sure, yeah.
And so it's, and let me ask, you may have had whatever thoughts on diversity, inclusion, and different things when you didn't own a company, or let's say your husband didn't own a company. But I know for a fact that I will guarantee that you don't care what that person looks like.
No.
You don't care if it's a man or a woman. You don't care what language they speak. Can you do a good job?
Yes.
Can you show up on time?
Yep.
Can you be professional and get your job done?
Right.
And when you're a business owner, a lot of times it's, I think, unfair when people would like be critical of, well, you don't hire enough this, you don't hire enough that. Like, I'll hire anybody that can get the job done.
Right. Mm-hmm. 100%. And there's been times that, we actually did have a woman project manager. It didn't work out for her specifically, but do I want more women that are project managers for me? Yeah, 100%.
Sure.
But we just got to find the right one. And I'm definitely not going to hire somebody because I'm trying to fit that inclusion narrative, so to speak. I'm going to hire whoever is the best for that job. I'm not going to exclude anybody though either. It's who shows up for the interview, who has maybe some experience or seems like they can get the job done to the best of our quality standards. And I think that when you do become a business owner, like you say, we have a job to do. And in the construction industry, everything needed to be done yesterday. So that's what I always joke. Everything was supposed to be done yesterday. That is how fast it goes. So it is super important for us to just have the right people in place that can execute in the way that we need to. And that can come in any form or fashion, it's just who can do the best job. And definitely would not turn down anybody no matter what, qualifications aside, that's the most important thing. Can you come in and actually do the job, and you can have very qualified candidates that you're like, I thought you went to school for this, you know what I mean? And then it's like, it didn't quite work out. Or people that don't have the qualifications that like just are rock stars at it. So you don't ever know until you give that person the chance, so.
Let me ask you a little bit about the quality control. I know that you had mentioned that, I think on a prior interview of something I was listening to. Let's go back to the example of your husband having to tear out that foundation.
Yeah.
And it was getting laid.
That might be where it started.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, is there something in quality control? And if you can kind of just step us into that, what that looks like.
Yeah.
And let's say in the form of foundation, where something can be caught early.
Yeah.
10% in, 20% in.
Right.
And in that case, it wasn't. And had they had good quality control processes, then that it never would have got there.
Right.
True?
True. Yeah, 100% true. So we like to say we want to be proactive versus reactive. That is very hard sometimes in this industry because, like I say, it's very fast. But I always often say, like, just stop and take a breath. Take a breath and look at, just double check. So our thing is always trying to be proactive versus reactive, checking and rechecking. You can never check and recheck too many times. I mean, at some point you've got to stop and do the thing, but those are kind of two of our principles of, it's okay to slow down for a minute and recheck over your work or recheck a plan or whatever you feel like you need to recheck to make sure that it's right. Because at the end of the day, we're responsible for making sure that all of these things are put on correctly. So another thing that we're really, we always try to continue education for ourselves as well as our employees. So we're always bringing our manufacturers in to make sure that the way that we're installing things, is exactly to their standards. How does the manufacturer intend for this to be installed? That's super important. Constantly bringing in people for other training. So, I think that for us, quality control is a moving target, so to speak, because yes, we have certain quality standards that we meet, but we have to always continuously raise those, over and over and over again. And people can get comfortable in what they're doing, and how can we make sure that nobody gets complacent, so by just continuously having a revolving door of trainings going on for all staff, I think that that's helped out a lot. We also can tend to be perfectionists. So we have managers that are also perfectionists, and my husband's cousin is probably the biggest perfectionist I've ever seen. So he really spearheaded a lot of our quality control parameters just because he was on the jobs a lot, and he was able to catch some things to really help us kind of hone in on that. He knew what we wanted, but to put those into terms of applicable terms, I would say that he really helped out with that. But we really do try to hire people that kind of do have that perfectionist, that drive to want everything to be right,
Sure.
So
how easy is it to notice, one thing, just watching videos.
Yeah.
I mean, those guns move fast.
They do move fast.
And I have pneumatic nailers, but I have to there's a lot more that goes into just to, it's like for a resident.
Yeah.
It's slower.
Yeah.
So how easy is it to identify, okay, there's not as many nails as you'd want in each tile.
Yeah.
Or overlaps and stuff. Like, is it pretty noticeable when when it's gone off the rails?
If you have the eyes to see it, yes. If it's in your wheelhouse, 100%. Yeah, you can definitely tell. You can go sometimes look at other people's work and be like, "Ooh, that wasn't quite right." But yeah, it's something that's easily noticeable and can easily picked out quickly.
I would imagine, are you the type, even when you pull into this neighborhood, are you just looking at roofs? Like when you pull into any neighborhood, all you do is look at the roofs first?
Yeah. I mean, you do notice them. And the funny thing is when my daughter started working for us, and especially when we travel, she made comments about the roofs, like, oh, look at that one, or oh, what kind of roof is that? Why does that roof look like that? Like the different applications. And so even new employees will do that too, that maybe hadn't been in roofing before. They'll even come in and be like, wow, I noticed some things that I hadn't really thought about before when it comes to roofing. And, it is not in your wheelhouse. And you're not in your daily thought patterns. You don't think about it. But I definitely do look at it. And I think actually that video that you showed, I think that house was in one of these neighborhoods right around here.
Oh, really?
Sure, yeah. I can't remember if it was this neighborhood specifically or if it was one of these others along county line, but I know it was right in this area. So yeah.
We're going to watch another video.
Okay.
And this is speaking to, okay, so let me, as a primer to it, just to set it up. One thing I really like about what you all do. So in the video we watched before, that lady Jill, she's also a real estate agent.
Yes, yeah.
And so she refers people to you, which you must love.
Yeah.
I would imagine at this point in 10 years, 11 years in, you probably don't even have to do much advertising. It just comes to you in a way, right? You have
to a certain level, yes. We pride ourselves on having a lot of referrals. With new people coming in though all the time to a lot of our markets, we have so many people moving in. So that does kind of create, we do still have to do a decent amount of advertising, but we do pride ourselves on the fact that we do get a ton of referrals. Yeah. And that's what you want as a business owner, is to be getting referrals and have word of mouth.
Sure.
Drive your customers to you. So yeah.
That always seems like in the homes we've bought, when you work with a good agent, your agent then also helps you with, okay, you're going to get your home inspection through this person.
Yeah.
This person's going to do this. This person's going to do that. And you just kind of trust them to be like it's their network.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And they normally often help we work with realtors a lot on making repairs for, people buying houses and things like that. So that's a huge part of our business.
But the comment I wanted to make is so what you all did, and I think you have like a YouTube channel. You may not have updated stuff in a while.
Yeah. We're working on trying to grow that. That's kind of a big goal of mine this year, is to grow that.
Well, it's
YouTube.
a time suck.
It really is.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But the good thing, what you've done, what I did like was, so Jill, I think her name was Jill.
Yeah.
She had her own video, her own testimonial.
Yes.
And then you took a snippet of that and put it into that video we showed earlier.
Right.
And then the video I'm about to show is something that it looks like you've done 5 to 10 versions of, and then you insert in a different manufacturer, different supplier, and change the video, if you will. But you're obviously being able to reuse a lot of the footage.
Yes.
And so this is just an example using GAF,
right?
Their product and stuff. And so this is something where, again, if you were to watch all the videos, you would be like, well, wait a minute, this is the same video. Well, it's not, because they're going to get into more of a specialized component.
Right.
When you call Ridgeline, our team of professionals immediately gets to work to find out about your construction needs. We then schedule an appointment for a visit that is convenient and fits your busy schedule. When our project manager comes to your home, they work with you to understand the needs and expectations for your unique project. They provide advice on new industry-leading technologies to give you better choices and options on products and warranties. This process involves the project manager taking before photos so that they can study them with other members of the Ridgeline team so that no detail is missed. Because Ridgeline is a leader in the roofing construction industry, we are able to offer warranty options other companies can't. Shingle and roofing manufacturers trust our installation process, and because of that, we are able to offer multiple and personalized roofing warranties. That warranty process ensures that you trust our installation and are covered for many years. Ridgeline Construction is proud to be a GAF certified Master Elite roofing contractor. This means that GAF trusts us to provide you with the best installation of their quality roofing systems. GAF shingles are backed by a unique lifetime warranty term and GAF's trademarked 50-year Smart Choice protection period. GAF also backs up their product with a 10-year warranty for stain guard labeled shingles or ridge cap shingles. Ridgeline also installs your roof so that you may qualify for GAF's wind-proven limited wind warranty. This means that Ridgeline installs layer lock.
There you go.
Yep.
Is that a drone? Were you all using a drone for that?
Yes.
Whose drone is that? You just hired out?
Yeah, it was hired out. We do have drones. We do have some drone operators, and so we have utilized that technology. But that was actually outsourced, to our commercial making companies. So,
Do you normally now, rather than just send somebody up on a ladder, use a drone to just...
Sometimes, yeah. So there's a ton of cool technology out now to keep people from having to always get on the roof. And, anytime we can try to keep them off, our laborers are, that's what they do every day. So, they're super used to it. But, and everybody's great that may have to get on there. But anytime you can limit that, it's great. So, yeah, we use drones. There's also some other technologies like software that we can use to get like, a top-down view of it. And sometimes that's enough, and that's all we need in order to be able to provide a proposal. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to utilize those things and keep everybody safer. But it's also efficiency as well. So, but those drones are great because you can really see issues with the drones. I mean, they're great. So,
well, whatever company you used to produce that, the video quality is excellent.
Yeah, they did a great job.
And the narrator is excellent.
Yeah, they did a great job. And actually, the video we watched of myself, he really coached me through that because I don't feel like I'm very good at stuff like that. Like I was a performer, but I didn't have to talk growing up. So when I have to talk, like he really coached me through it to make sure that it sounded good. Because I will, like if I'm given a script, I'll read it really fast.
Yeah.
So he's like, slow down. But he did such a good job of like helping me get through it and sound really good too. So.
Sure.
So yeah.
So, do you and your husband, and I was looking at the YouTube stuff that you've done, have you thought about doing a show of some sort?
We have. We've actually been talking about that more and more lately. Every time we talk about that, we feel like we end up not having time to do it. But it's just going to take, us both sitting down and saying we're just going to do this. But yeah, we have talked a lot about doing that. Because we do feel like at the point that we're at, we have a lot to offer from like a business perspective, but also education for, homeowners as well. And even if it's not necessarily our customers, anybody in the country can look at it and maybe get education on, what they're looking at when they get an estimate from a roofing contractor or siding contractor. So that's definitely on our radar. I can't say it's on the short list yet, but it's on the long list.
Does he like it in front of the camera?
I would say he does not love getting in front of the camera, but I think that seeing the benefits of how that could help both consumer and us from a business perspective is motivating enough to him.
Yeah.
Being okay with getting in front of a camera. But no, he does not normally like to get in front of the camera or talk like that. And he's great talking to people, but, in that scripted kind of way, he's not as comfortable. So
here's what I thought of when I was doing the research on this show. Here's this couple from HGTV, the hometown.
Yes.
And it just, just seeing the height difference between you and your husband, it made me think of, and I kind of met this guy in the airport.
Did you?
When October.
I love their show.
I went out to Vegas for a conference for work, and I'm in Houston changing planes, and I'm at like a Chipotle.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a Chipotle or a Chipotle-like restaurant, and he's standing next to me.
That's cool.
Waiting, and I don't recognize him because I had never seen the show.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't know who he was. I just thought I literally thought, I was like, wait, where we're at? We're in Houston. I wonder if he plays for the Texans. Like,
he's
a big guy.
He's a big guy, yeah.
And so then this African-American guy comes running up.
Yeah.
And like starstruck. And he's like,
you're like,
oh my gosh, can I get my picture with you?
Yeah.
And then they look at me.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you take our picture? I'm like,
who is this?
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So, they're standing next to each other, and the guy is just like, it's made his year,
that's so cool.
Right? And to have a picture. And so he's like thanking him, and he's just like, oh, my wife's going to be so excited.
Yeah.
And he leaves, and then he goes to sit with his wife. I'm like, okay, well. And the last thing I heard him say was, hey, we really like your show.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they must have some show. And now he's with his wife, so let me just take a stab. Maybe it's HGTV.
Yeah, right,
and
right.
it didn't take me long. Like, oh, there they are.
There he is. How funny
there
is that?
There's a celebrity, and I didn't know who he was.
That's so funny.
Which I think sometimes celebrities actually appreciate.
Yeah.
Even if I did recognize him, just whatever. He's in he's trying to catch a plane. He's getting a burrito. Yeah. Just let him
live his life.
Yeah.
There's been a few that I've run into. The one that I really had to speak to is Paula Dean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was obsessed with her cooking show for a while. And so we actually saw her in Key West because her husband like the Hemingway days. He dresses up like Ernest Hemingway. And
Oh, really?
So we happened to be down there. I mean, just coincidentally. And so we were at the airport, and there she is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Paula Deen. Well, I mean, I've seen people before, and I never would talk to him for that reason, you know, because I'm like, just let him be. But when it came to Paula Deen, I was like, I've got to go talk to her. Like, I had to. So I did. And she's like, just, you know, just as jolly as you would imagine. And she's like playing with my hair and telling me I'm so cute, gave me a big hug. And so, Paula Deen, if you're listening, I'll never forget you.
I hope she's listening.
I know, that would be great, right? We did go to her. We went to Savannah last year, and we went to her restaurant. And she was supposed to be back like a few days later, but we were already going to be gone. I was like, I should go back and remind her she played with my hair at the airport.
She'll be like, okay.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I've seen a million other people since then, but she was super sweet. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, let's talk about Anniston.
Okay,
Because you
yeah,
said you were
yeah.
something about a surgery. If you wanted to chat
Yeah,
about that.
so she had a very big surgery. So when we adopted her, in 2019, another God thing, right before everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we brought her home in August, and in January of 2020, they shut it all down, and it's been shut down since then. So it is really, really crazy.
And she was like 2?
Yeah, she was
her?
2.
Okay.
Yeah, she turned 3 about a month after we got home. And, you know, those first few days, those first few months, it is kind of like coming home with a new baby in a lot of ways. Not from the newborn aspect, but just a newness about it and trying to figure this child out. She didn't speak any English, couldn't understand what I was saying. She didn't really speak really well herself, but I would literally Google Translate sometimes, you know, to kind of, she picked up pretty quickly, but because she was so young. But when we picked her up, she's doing this weird twitching thing. And we knew based on her medical history, epilepsy could be somewhere, you know, down the road was what we thought, you know, maybe down the road. But when I went to pick her up, she's doing this weird twitching thing. And I was like, well, it looks like a spasm. You know, I'm going to chalk it up to spasm because coincidentally, as a part of the process, you have to go through this painstaking piece of paper that kind of just says like what medical needs you're open to versus what you feel like you couldn't handle. And I appreciated the practicality in that, but it was like probably the hardest piece of paperwork that we had to go through in the process. But kid you not, epilepsy was one of the ones that I was like, I'm terrified of seizures, like terrified. So she's having this little weird thing going on, and I'm like, And I send a video of it to the doctor, and she's like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think it's a seizure. So I'm like, yeah, it's not a seizure. You know, she does it, you know, periodically, but I'm thinking it's just some kind of weird spasm. And so we get home, and she has some big grand mal, stop breathing, purple lips, the whole 9 yards, and I'm terrified. And my poor Truett, our younger son, happens to be there for each of those. I don't know how it ended up happening, but he was there and witnessed every single time. And I was like, that poor child, he's probably traumatized. So yeah, it was terrifying. So of course we figured out, yes, she's definitely having seizures. Had to make some medication changes and got those things under control. But every time she grew, the seizures would kind of come back and get a little worse. So it finally got to the point, she had a shunt placed for hydrocephalus, like when she was still in China. So we were already being followed by a neurosurgeon here, just kind of as a part of that upkeep. You know, that's something that just has to be checked out every year. So he kind of planted the bug in my ear of like, well, you know, if she doesn't quit having seizures, I can probably help with that. But at the time I'm thinking, I don't really want to do brain surgery. You know, if we can avoid it with medication. Of course, we were always open to it because anything to give her the best quality of life, you know, we're always going to be willing to do, but it is a scary thing. So it kind of got to a fever pitch, and we were failing medications, so to speak. So when you fail it, you still have breakthrough seizures. So they were well enough controlled that she wasn't having the big scary ones, but she was still having multiple seizures, you know, every single day. And so we started that whole process. And, you know, I used to say my divorce was the hardest thing I ever went through. And then I said going to China was the hardest thing I ever went through. Now I can say brain surgery is by far the hardest thing I've ever been through, outside of business ownership stuff. But that, bar none, across my whole span of my life was the hardest thing. But, you know, so it became more apparent that this might really be something we need to explore. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through from that perspective too. One of them being failing medications, but you also have to have some monitoring involved, extended monitoring of the seizure activity. So we go to do that last summer, and the doctor's like, well, expect to be here for 5 days, hooked up to these monitors, which I was absolutely dreading because I thought she's a very rambunctious, active child. I don't know how we're going to keep these electrodes on our head for 5 days. And I just prayed before we went. I said, God, please don't let this take 5 days because I think that it's going to be 5 days of misery. And so we get there and they're like, well, we have to catch 4 seizures. That was the benchmark. We got to get 4. And they reduced medication to try to help with that. Obviously, you're there, so if you have big seizures, you're fine. But they're going to take care of that. But I said, well, I'm pretty sure that we won't have any trouble with that because I'm pretty sure she's having seizures like all the time, like even some I can't see. They're like, well, yeah, we'll see. Just expect to be here for the 5 days. I was like, okay. So they reduced the medication that night, and that whole night she was like awake and just looking at me, and I knew she was having seizures all night. And so they come in the next day and give me all her medicine, so I knew something was up because they went ahead and gave us all the medication, and they're like, so we got like probably 10 seizures last night. I was like, I told you.
Yeah.
So we packed up and left. So we were only there for like less than 24 hours. But they got what they needed. And that's what they needed to capture to know they were going to get to the right spot. So fast forward, it's like we got the call that she's definitely a candidate. And
what's the diagnosis at this point?
Epilepsy, and we don't exactly know what caused it, but it is pretty consistent with a stroke at birth or in utero. So
Okay.
So yeah, infarction is what it says on the paperwork. But so we believe there's some kind of stroke at some point early in life, or even in the developmental stages, and that actually caused a lot of the brain tissue to kind of die off. It became scar tissue. That was what was seizing, and it was crossing over into the good brain tissue. So she has some weakness in that right side because it's the left side that has the issues. And so, we knew those issues could get a little worse as far as like the weakness and not being able to use that right side. And it did. But we go into this surgery. It was about 6 hours long. It was terrifying because you're sitting there thinking my kid's head is open right now. Like it was
Yeah.
horrible. And really in the weeks leading up to it, I almost canceled it because I was too scared. I mean, I was really terrified, and everything we were doing before that, I was like, is this the last time? Like, what if something happens? And the statistics are very good. It's not like life or death, but you feel like it in that moment. And or what if something goes wrong? You just never know. And so it was terrifying, and I almost canceled. I mean, I literally came down to like the week before. I told my husband, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to cancel it. And for whatever reason, he had such a sense of peace about it, and I was panicking, and I could not stop that panic. But he was the one that was like talking me off the ledge. So we go through this process, and the surgeon's like, we'll be in there like maybe 6 hours and maybe 3 days in the hospital, 3 weeks at home. She wakes up and she just did not want to do anything. She did not want to be there. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to walk. She didn't want to do any of it. And I'm looking at her thinking, what did we do to this child? Like she woke up just a different kid. And we were there for 9 days. And finally the surgeon comes in and he's like, I think y'all just need to go home. And I'm like, I agree. She's not going to do anything here. She does not want to be here. She's not going to do anything y'all ask her to do. So we took her home, and she was not walking when we took her home. She was in a wheelchair. And I thought, this is going to take forever. We're never, it's going to take 6 months to get her walking again. Let's see. We came home on a Thursday. That next Tuesday, which would have been right before Thanksgiving, she got up out of that wheelchair after breakfast, and she never sat back in it again.
Really?
Yeah. She just wanted to be home. She just wanted to be around her people, and that was the best medicine for her. But so luckily, no more seizures since then. That was in November, and I haven't seen any more seizures, and she's a much happier kid. I mean, and the quality of life I almost robbed her of because of my fear,
Yeah.
It would have been tragic, because she wasn't really writing before that, because as the surgeon explained it, like he said, turn up your TV as loud as possible on static and then change channels. That's what a seizure looks like. When you're having that constant activity, it's just like hitting a reset button all day long. So I think that was a very frustrating life for her. She's much happier now that she can think clearly. And for a while, it was like she was seeing everything through new eyes.
Sure.
Like here's this, like everything was almost like kind of a new experience. It was pretty cool.
If you don't mind sharing, what's the circumstance of her birth parents?
We do not know anything. Yeah, so sometimes in those situations, notes
better.
are left at times, but there was not anything left with her. They guesstimated about 5 days old. So when she was found, so yeah.
I guess it's a terrible, gross assumption that if in fact China still only limits you to a child and you end up having a female, you get rid of it, right? I mean,
yeah, and I think that they've realized you can't do that because then you can't perpetuate your society without females. So it's becoming more, it's becoming less of a thing for females specifically, but kids with special needs, because they can only have so many. Yeah, so and I don't know that they would have known. There's a part of me that thinks maybe they were young or very, maybe didn't have the means to take care of her or knew something was wrong with her and knew that they couldn't pay for it. So, because like I say, she was definitely born with something wrong with her. It happened right at birth.
Yeah.
So if they figured that out, I don't know if they just didn't know if they could take care of it, whatever that may be. But
how's the relationship?
I mean, what's crazy is that we went through all this training about attachment, and how do we, when you go through the process, the talking about education, even from a roofing standpoint, we kind of learned this very well through our adoption agency. They really, really went to great lengths to educate us as parents of what we were walking into, because you have, a lot of kids with emotional problems, physical problems, all kinds of things. So they kind of really tried to prepare us. And, they're like, attachment could be hard, in the beginning when you bring them home. They may, these kids sometimes have a hard time with that. I mean, she was attached to us, I would say, within 2 weeks. There was still some apprehension, just I think about the newness of everything going on in her life. But as far as like seeing us as who's taking care of her, happened pretty quickly. And I had prayed a lot about that because I was like, I don't want to bring a kid here and her be terrified of us, even though we're trying to do this, give her a family and give her a life, she's not going to know that if she's terrified. So I was really thankful that she took really easily and really well to all of us very quickly. Even that we were talking about this, I even talked to her about this week. So she's always known she came from China. She's always known that I've went on a big airplane. Never, wanted her to know any different than that because I want her to get older and be like, why didn't you tell me, be angry. So it's just always been part of her life that she knows that's kind of how that went. And and I found some baby pictures of my son when I was cleaning, putting Easter decorations up the other day and pulled them out for her. And we were looking through them and, I said, yeah, he was in my belly, but you grew in my heart. And yes, you were in China. And she gets it. She's 6 years old, but she totally seems to get it. And she's just like, oh, okay. That's just how it went. I'm sure that there'll be more questions as she gets older. But for us, even though the process was different, getting these children, we do not see her any different ways. I joke and say sometimes I forget that I did not birth her, or I didn't carry her in my womb because there's no difference between her and our biological kids. And, and even looking back, like even when my husband wasn't too sure about this whole process, I was like, you've already kind of done that with Lily, Lily Grace was not your biological child, but you've still taken care of her like she's yours. So like you actually have more experience with this than I do, and so, but she's ours. And in every sense of the term, as far as we're concerned. And even though we missed out on those first 2 years of her life, we don't really think about that. It's really strange. It's very strange and wonderful that she's just part of our family, and that's,
call that tender mercy.
Yeah, for sure. It's a beautiful thing. So,
all right, I've got I want to go through a picture pack.
Okay.
And then we'll close up. And these are just pictures I've taken from mostly your Facebook.
Yeah.
Some are for the family and some are Ridgeline.
Okay, cool.
And really just get your commentary.
Yeah.
I couldn't pass this one up.
So that's baby Truett.
Yeah.
That's his friend Piper. They were in a few classes together. He actually bit her in preschool.
Oh, boy.
And, they make you come pick your kid up when
that happens.
When that happens. And so I get it, and I'm like, what'd you do? I bite Pitbull. He called her Pitbull. It's like, well, at least he's being honest. But he only did it once, thank goodness.
And I think this is Sound of Music.
This is the Nutcracker,
the
and that's
Nutcracker.
Lily Grace in the
Dang
blue dress. So the dance company started doing the Nutcracker, which is super fun. Growing up, we would go every once in a while to the Huntsville Ballet's version, and so the dance company started doing it, and it's just a really cool experience for these kids to be in a true traditional ballet piece. So so that's Lily in that.
I don't know why I thought it was Sound of Music. It just seemed like
It
it'd be
does
the
look like
same
Sound of
set.
Music. Yeah, it's kind of got the same feel, same
Same thing
vibe.
there.
Yeah,
Different shot.
yeah, different shots. That's Lily.
Now we're getting into some. This is new
Yeah,
construction.
this is a multifamily apartment complex that we worked at. I think that this one is Old Monrovia Road, I believe, over in the Huntsville area.
And this is roofing and siding you're doing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll look at the process. This is our Tampa team with the happy homeowner.
Which one's the homeowner? Far right?
Yeah, far right. And our Tampa team's kind of sticking together as they're training and, kind of trying to maneuver through that landscape. So they kind of go together a lot right now. So they were all together that day, and they're starting to kind of go in their separate directions, on their own, but they are learning together because Jason on the right, standing next to the homeowner, he was in construction, and so was Mario. But as far as like dialing in as only roofing, it's a different animal. And so Tyler on the left is the manager there, and he's kind of was keeping the flock together to learn. So yeah.
And this is a Tampa roof.
Yep. Yeah. So you can see the Florida roofs are a lot more flat than ours here. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example of that.
Yeah.
I'm showing this picture because the guy, that's Blake Williams.
Yeah, Blake. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to interview him. I had to cancel on him last week because I was in Virginia for work, and then so we're pushing to probably June.
Yeah, he's
but
great.
This is. Tell me do you know what the shot?
This
is
was
Oh.
from?
at the Chamber Coffee for Athens Limestone County Chamber of Commerce, and so Karina on the right is our marketing manager, and then on the far left is Grace, who's works in our billing department, and then Lottie. There, she's a realtor and actually knew Karina from before, so that was pretty cool. And then Blake recently joined Limestone County Economic Development. So yeah, those are just some good community members together for some.
And I guess
good
you do that
coffee.
as regular as you can, right?
Yeah, I do. I don't get to do like those types of events. I'm on the board of the chamber, so I do kind of more the boardy stuff, I guess you could say, right now. So I like to send my employees though out to the more networking things. So this is a newer project that we were super excited about, kind of over there in the Mid-City area. And these are they call them pods. So they're building these kind of like townhome, but they're individual homes, but built kind of in pods. So it's kind of like a townhome feel.
Are they all rentals?
No, they're new construction I guess some may be rented and some may be owned. I think that it'll kind of shake out as that. It's not like apartments, so to speak, but
the little cottage homes.
Yeah, like cottage homes. Yeah, they're really cute.
Because I know that's a big fad now. There would be all rentals.
That's becoming a thing. We haven't seen that as much here, but we're hearing it is coming here. But yeah, those we're doing the roofing and the siding on. So
now this aerial shot.
Yeah.
Goes back into your comment on capacity.
Yes.
Like what's too big? Was this something you're like, okay, we can handle this, but not much more? Because this seems like a big project.
We feel pretty good about these projects now. We feel like our capacity, we feel pretty, we've had a lot of experience with these multifamily projects, so we're pretty comfortable here right now.
You're doing all the roof.
Yeah. That's very pretty apartment complex, Ariza, over kind of near Oakwood College, Old Monrovia Road area, just past Providence. They're beautiful.
And how long? What's your estimate on timeline for something like?
Let's see. We worked on that one probably like some of them can be like 6 months. The previous one is probably going to be over a year. Some of them can be more like 3 months, depending on the size. But yeah, we spend quite a bit of time on these.
And then here's your women's. This is at least 10 of them.
All the ladies.
And your Lily Grace is top right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's Lily Grace. So.
And Karina's below her.
Yep. And then we have HR top middle is Christine. And then production staff is mainly the rest, except for under me, is Nikki that handles like all the billing. Like she kind of ties it all in and puts a pretty bow on it at the end of the month for me.
Okay. And then we have, I mentioned this just, why did I bring this up? Just, I know I brought this up. So GAF,
Yeah.
how often are they coming to you trying to say, hey, we want you to feature our products, or are you often reaching out to the supplier?
It happens both ways. There are sometimes manufacturers that approach us and they're like, we've heard your reputation. We really like to work with you. But to become a master lead, you do have to jump through some hoops and prove your worth, so to speak. You have to be on board with their warranty that they offer, and you have to be able to produce so many of those warranties. It's a great warranty, but there's a little bit of extra stuff that goes into it, a little bit of extra cost for the customer as well. But it pays off in the long run, hugely. So that house on top, we did the roof, and we painted it, actually. It was a brick house that was like more of a red brick. Mm-hmm. No, it was tan. It was more like a tan brick, but we painted it more that white color. That was super fun to do.
Sure.
And we do some painting projects as well. So that was a fun transformation to watch.
What about the one on the bottom?
So the one on the bottom is a new construction. So of course those are always fun because it's a beautiful house, and I love the architecture here. I think that we have some really pretty houses going up, in this area right now. So
we love it.
Yep.
And there's just another shot of that same, just a little bit more of the complexity. Yep. And I love the testimonials.
Yeah.
Here's one from Marisa Cepeda. And it's just nice when they say good things to you about you, right? And you post those on Facebook. Yeah,
we especially love it when they shout out to the actual project manager, and actually call them out by name. And, that means a lot to us that they have enough of a relationship that they, call them out.
Yeah. This is your employee of the year?
Yeah. So
or employee of the month?
Project manager of the year last year.
Okay.
So he, this is Brandon. He is in our Pensacola office, and he is a fantastic project manager. Customers really, really love and appreciate him, and he really goes the extra mile. They all do. But he kind of teaches our sales staff some good best practices. He just does who he is. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now this was tell me that's like there's a couple pictures here. One is this group of people. I think there's your contractors.
Yeah, so these are subcontractors, and we try to do
like a giveaway.
Yeah,
or something?
once or twice a year we try to bring them all in and do like an appreciation luncheon, and have some door prizes. We invite our suppliers to kind of come and be a part of that, and it's really fun. And they get so excited and they really appreciate it. But we think that that's just as important to appreciate our employees, but also appreciate our subcontractors too.
Absolutely.
Because they're just as much employees, even if they're, independent, but they're just as much a part of our team as everybody else.
Well, it's like you said earlier, if they are working for other companies, well, how do you make yourselves the priority for them?
Yeah, so
and you take care of them,
right?
They're going to be there when you need them.
That's and that's kind of our motivation, is to really take care of them in the way that we want them to take care of us. And it's really the best way to do business in general, is to take care of people the way you want to be taken care of.
The golden rule, right?
Yeah. The golden rule rings true today, and it is really truly at the core of everything that we do as a business. And if you would have asked me, I kept saying 10 years ago, but now I've got to say 12 years ago, if I'd be working with my husband, I would have told you were crazy. But I'm really proud of the partnership that we have and the team that we have assembled together, and how well we work together. He has his lane, I have my lane, and we do cross over on the big items, but for the most part, we just handle what we handle, and it works really, really well for us. So I think that being a husband and wife team allows us to kind of bring that family aspect, and now that we've got our daughter working for us, it really puts more in perspective of treating our customers the way we would want to be treated, because we're all in it together.
And how special for you to look back now to when you find out you're pregnant with your daughter, you're a senior in high school, and fast forward, now she's working for you, and you adopted Anniston, you have two of your own boys, and the great thing about living in Alabama is that we hear more and more people positively attribute that and correctly attribute that to God and the Lord, right? I mean, we're all His children, and And he puts it's always amazing when you hear people's stories, and there's always a few moments in their life that you kind of come to that crossroads, or my life could do this, or my life could do that. And it's all about the people you had in your circle and your family at the time, or someone just kind of comes and gives you a piece of information and off you go with it.
Right.
That leads to meeting Terry, that leads to deciding, maybe I should join Ridgeline and become the president. And, And so I really appreciate you sharing your story.
It's a lot of fun.
Sharing
I appreciate
your journey.
it. The opportunity. It's a lot of fun. And I love talking about, the construction industry, but I love talking about, and I haven't put out there enough my story. My husband's always like, you should write a book to tell that story. And I'm like, well, I don't know about writing a book, but it's fun to be able to put it out there, because I think, throughout life, people find themselves in predicaments all the time. And you're right, it is a crossroads. And there are a couple of other people that was in the same situation that I was in high school. And one of them is no longer with us, and so it just, you really think about the way your life could have gone versus the way that it went. And there's nothing that I could have done outside of what the Lord has offered me. And I've taken, the guidance that he's given out, all along the way. We all screw up sometimes, but the cool thing is I have felt him nudging me back, or cleaning up my mess, or fixing whatever it is. And you can allow that to happen in your life. And we have a saying too, we can be bitter or we can be better, and, I think that's super important. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to share that today.
And go back and thank Karina. Sometimes enough time goes by where I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Karina.
Yeah, she reached out. And
she's been doing a great job of trying to look for platforms. Because the only way to really, not only, for our own business, but for women in the industry too, the only way to change that percentage, which you accurately stated earlier, is to get the word out there about it. So she's done a great job of trying to get that, look for those platforms to, kudos to her. So she actually just started with us at the beginning of the year, and she hit the ground running, and she's done a great job. So we're super glad to have her.
I'm always thrilled when I get an email. Yeah. And it's like, hey, I want to have my boss on your show. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Easy. Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah.
Well, any final shout outs?
Let's see. Final shout outs. Oh, I think I hit all the high notes. Got the parents in there. Got the kids in there.
Yeah.
Lily Grace will especially appreciate that I made sure to talk about her today, because the chamber had their awards or their annual meeting last week, and I did win executive leadership, but I wasn't expecting to win, and before they started announcing winners, they're like, you can say a few quick words. Well, I wasn't prepared to say any words, and so I get up there and I was like thanking my team and Terry, those kind of just generic quick things, and then I got off the stage because just nerves. And I sat back down. She's like, gee, thanks, Mom.
Oh, you didn't mention you.
I was like, sorry. I did say team, and you are part of the team, but in that moment I was just nervous, and it
happens.
It happens. So she'll appreciate that. I made sure to shout out to her. But yeah, I think that I hit all the high notes of all the people that really, really were huge influences on my life. I had a lot of cheerleaders and a lot of people that have gone to bat for me. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So,
well, after we're done, we're going to get a ladder and have you go and check
our
roof.
Yeah, I know, right?
And I want to see if
take a look. Let's see if you need any.
Or if we're eligible.
Yeah, see if y'all need anything that needs to be fixed up there.
Well, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks so much.
We appreciate your time, and I hope to have you on again in the future.
Love that. That would be great.
We'll talk about the 5th location you open up.
Yes, that may be in the works.
There you go.
Lips are sealed, but maybe by then it will be open.
Have a good one.
You too.